This is the corrections video for Alfred's Essentials of Music Theory, Unit 13 review. Number 1, an inversion of a chord means that the root is no longer on the bottom. In first inversion, the third of the triad is on the bottom. In close position, the notes of a chord are spaced within an octave. Number 4, rewrite the following triads in first inversion. Add the chord symbol and the Roman numeral for each chord. So we have to start by looking at our key signature. Here we're in the key of C, and this is a C chord, so that means that it's going to be a 1 chord of some kind, and it's going to be a C chord of some kind. Now to do the inversion, we're going to take this bottom note, which is C, and move it up an octave, and everything else stays in place. Now, because the distance between here is a sixth and here is a third, we're going to have 6, 3, but that 3 is implied, so we don't actually need it. And then for our chord symbol, we're going to look at what note is now on the bottom. That note is E, so this is a C over E chord. All right. Now we're in the key of F. This is an F chord, which means it's going to be a 1 chord of some sort. It's going to stay an F chord of some sort. We're going to take that bottom note F, move it up an octave, everything else stays the same, and it's a 6 chord, and A is on the bottom. Next, we're in the key of B flat, and this is a B flat chord, so it's going to be a 1 chord. It's going to be a B flat chord. We're going to take that B flat right here and move it up an octave and leave everything else where it was. So now we have a B flat chord with D on the bottom, and it's a 1/6 chord. Now in the key of G, because we have 1 sharp, this is a G chord, so it's going to be a 1 chord of some sort. It's going to be a G chord of some sort. We're going to take that G from the bottom, move it up an octave, and everything else stays in place. It's still a 1/6 chord, and now it's a G with B on the bottom, so it's a G/B chord. Now in the key of D, we have a D chord, so it's going to be a 1 chord of some kind. It's going to be a D chord of some kind. Now we're going to take D from the bottom, move it up to the top, leave everything else where it was. So now it's a D chord, but F is on the bottom, F sharp, because of our key signature. And it's going to be a 1/6 chord, just like all of our other first inversions are 1/6 chords. In second inversion, the fifth of the triad is always on the bottom, because we moved the root up to the top for first inversion, and then we move the third up to the top for second inversion, leaving the fifth on the bottom. In an open position, the notes of the chord are spaced more than an octave. Okay, number 7, rewrite the following root position triads in second inversion. Add the chord symbol and the Roman numeral for each chord. It wants us to continue to use close position. So we are in the key of C, and this is a C. So it's going to be a C chord of some kind. It's going to be the 1 chord. And then we're going to take the bottom note up an octave and the middle note up an octave. So the C moves to here, the E moves to here, and the G stays the same. Now this distance is a 6th, and this distance is a 4th, giving it our 1/6/4 for our figured bass. It's still a C chord, but what's now on the bottom? G. So it's a C/G chord. In the key of F, this is going to be an F chord. We're going to take the F on the bottom, move it up an octave. We're going to take the A from the middle, move it up an octave, and leave the C where it was. So it's still a 1/6/4 chord, and it's an F with a C on the bottom. F chord with a C on the bottom. key of B flat, we have a B flat chord. So it's going to be the 1 chord. We're going to take the B flat up an octave. We're going to take the D up an octave, and we're going to leave the F where it was. Still a 1/6/4, because this distance is a sixth and this distance is a fourth. And our B flat chord now has an F on the bottom, so it's a B flat / F chord. In the key of G, we have a G chord, so it is the 1. And it's going to be a G chord. We're going to move the G up an octave, we're going to move the B up an octave, and D will stay where it was. Still a 6/4, because all second inversions are 6/4s. And now the note that's on the bottom is D, so it's a G / D chord. In the key of D, it's going to be the 1 chord, because this is D. We're going to move D up the octave, we're going to move F sharp up the octave, and we're going to leave A exactly where it was. It's going to be a 6/4, because all second inversions are 6/4. It's a D chord, and now A is on the bottom. Number 8. If the root is on the bottom of the triad, it is in root position. If the third is on the bottom, we are in first inversion. If the fifth is on the bottom, we are in second inversion. In close position, the root in first and second inversions is the upper note of the interval of a sixth. Okay, so it's talking about this distance right here from the bottom note. In close position, the root in first and second inversions is the upper note of the interval of a sixth. Yep, so it's talking about that space right there. Number 10, how many inversions are there of a 5/7 chord? So it can have root position with the root on the bottom, first inversion with the third on the bottom, second inversion with the fifth on the bottom, and third inversion with the seventh on the bottom. So altogether, that gives us 3 inversions plus root position. Okay, it wants us to take this chord and invert it all 3 times, and then add the figured bass for it. So we are in the key of A, and it's an E chord, because A, B, C sharp, D, E gets us to the 5th scale degree, which is why it's a 5/7 chord. And so for first inversion, we're going to take that E up the octave. Everything else stays where it was. Then we're going to take our new bottom, which is G, and go up the octave. Everything else stays where it was. And take our new bottom, B, up the octave, and everything else stays where it was. Now it wants us to add figure bass. These are all going to be 5 chords, because E is the root in the key of A, and then it wants us to figure out all of these intervals. So our first inversion is a 5, 6, 5, 3. And then, because this is a 6th, this is a 5th, this is a 3rd. Our second inversion, we have a 6th, a 4th, and a 3rd. So we would add 6, 4, 3. And then lastly, we have a 6th, a 4th, and a 2nd. Now, traditionally, we don't put the 1 there, and we don't put the 6 here, and we don't put the 6 here. All right. A chord moving from one chord to another is called a chord progression. That's like when we go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord to the 1 chord to the 5 chord. Okay, the 3 chords that contain all of the notes in the major scale are the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, or 5/7. This makes it so that every note of the scale is covered in those 3 chords, which we call the primary triads. Okay. Underneath, it is asking us to rewrite this chord progression using inversions so that we have a common tone in between each chord, and then indicate what each position is in using a chord symbol and figured bass. So all of our 1 chords, we're going to let them stay in root position. Okay, we're in the key of D, that's a D chord, so it's a 1 chord, we're going to leave it in root position, and we're going to do that for all of our 1 chords. D first, and D 1 chord. Now, the tone that the 1 chord and the 4 chord have in common, here we have D, F sharp A, here we have G, B, D. So they both have D as their common tone. So to get from this D to the next chord, that D gets to just continue to live right there. And then the other 2 notes are going to stay where they were right here. So this G stays right there, and this B stays right there. So it's a G chord with D on the bottom, and for our figured bass, we have a 6th here and a 4th here, so it is a 4, 6, 4 chord. It's a 4 because G is the 4th scale degree of D. D, E, F sharp, G, 4th scale degree. That's why it's a 4 chord. Okay, and then for our 5/7 chord, the note that we have in common is this A. You can see that it directly correlates. Okay, so that A is going to stay exactly where it was, and then we're going to take all of the other stuff and bring it closer by moving it down an octave. So we have a C, an E, and a G. A C, an E, and a G. So it's still a 5 chord because A is the 5th note of the D major scale, and it's still an A7 chord, but now C sharp is on the bottom, and we have the intervals of a 6th, a 5th, and a 3rd. So 6, 5, 3, and remember traditionally we leave that 3 off. Okay, so the common tone from the 1 chord to the 4 chord is going to be the same as the 4 chord to the 1 chord, which is why we left this in root position. Okay, and then this A goes straight across, and then again straight across back to the 1 chord. Those are our common tone chord progressions.